In both the Toy Story franchise and Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, a lot of the main focus is put on the relationships between the characters, whether they be platonic, rivals, or even occasionally romantic. Unsurprisingly, Pixar's newest film Lightyear is no exception, and we're here to look at and rank each of these relationships. I'm Caleb with Wicked Binge, and this is Lightyear Relationships Healthy to Toxic. Naturally, major spoilers ahead for the entirety of the movie. As for the list itself, we'll be starting with the healthiest relationships before moving on to the ones that could use a bit or a lot of work. These relationships are the healthy. For our healthiest relationship of Lightyear, we had to go with Alicia and her wife, Kiko. Although we only get a couple brief scenes with them, we can infer a lot from these scenes. Namely, that they were able to create a happy life together despite less than ideal circumstances. While they may have been of different ranks and a part of different groups, with Alicia being a former space ranger and Kiko being a member of the science crew, they seem to work together well as a couple. Really, the fact that they were able to raise a happy and successful son speaks volumes about how successful they were as both a couple and as parents. While we weren't able to see much of it, the two were able to build a happy life together. And what could be healthier than that? Following that, we have the grandmother-granddaughter relationship of Alicia and Izzy. Again, not much of this relationship is shown to us on screen, with the two of them only getting one real scene together. Still, the strong connection they have is felt throughout the film. Just based on how Izzy talks about her grandmother, it's made clear that she greatly admires and respects her. Though Alicia was willing to tell Izzy stories about her ranger days and even teach her some things, she never seemed to pressure Izzy to be like her. Instead, caring more about simply spending time with her granddaughter and playing games with her. Unfortunately, while Alicia herself might never have pressured Izzy to live up to the Hawthorne name, Izzy still tries to hold herself to that standard and does seem to put a lot of pressure on herself. Again, this wasn't necessarily Alicia's fault, but it does make the relationship less than perfect, as Izzy still most likely sees Alicia as not only a loving grandmother, but as a legacy she has to try and live up to. Reaching the last of our Alicia-focused relationships, we arrive at best friends Buzz and Alicia. We should mention this first and foremost. Although Alicia is technically Buzz's superior, and Buzz has a bit of an ego, there never really feels like there's a power dynamic between the two of them. They truly do feel like a couple of close friends, complete with bickering, inside jokes, and friendly banter.
Nope.
Look at the
No.
Lightyear.
They're able to work off of each other extremely well, always having each other's back when it comes to combat or outside dangers. While Alicia can sometimes be a bit pushy and Buzz can sometimes be a bit dismissive, they both truly do care about each other. One of the most notable moments of their friendship is when Alicia decides that the chance to leave Takana Prime isn't worth sacrificing Buzz's life. You could argue the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one, but it still shows that she ultimately wants Buzz to find happiness and peace with their situation just like she has. Even after accepting Buzz's choice, she makes sure that she has someone helping him deal with his time displacement, giving him socks. Though Buzz is firm in his desire to complete the mission, he never resents Alicia for living her life or for being content to stay on the colony. He's even shown to be happy for her when he hears she's engaged and later sees that she's pregnant. This is further emphasized towards the end of the film when Buzz becomes unwilling to correct his worst mistake, knowing that in doing so would essentially erase Alicia's happy life with her family, as well as the lives of everyone else on the colony. Even after nearly a century, Buzz's connection with Alicia is still incredibly strong, and is a perfect example of a friendship that's built to last even after death. Up next, we have the unexpected but still incredibly sweet friendship between Buzz and Socks. Forget the classic pair of a boy and his dog, how about a man and his RoboCat? At first, Buzz doesn't seem to want much to do with Socks, being someone who enjoys working alone. But thanks to Sox's kindness and sympathetic nature, the two are able to form a strong connection eventually. Sox doesn't just care about Buzz's emotional state, but his safety too. Though he also did it to partially save himself from being decommissioned, Sox did tranquilize someone in order to protect Buzz and later on even attacks a robot to try and save him. Buzz, in return, is very protective of Sox, growing to see him as more than just a machine or an assistant. By the time the film ends, you truly feel like the two are best buds, easily making it one of the most endearing relationships of the film. Finishing up the healthy relationships, we have the Junior Defense Force trio, this being Izzy, Mo, and Darby. Although the latter two members may not always get along, as we'll explain in a moment, as a trio, the Junior Defense Force do come off as good friends. While they may not always be successful, they do at the very least try to work together and refuse to leave anyone behind. Though not the strongest or brightest, they're able to accomplish quite a bit together, and with Izzy being both the encouraging leader and the sort of middleman that's keeping Mo and Darby from bickering too often, this trio is able to land on the fairly healthy side of things when it comes to being a team. Moving on, we've arrived at the tier that's right in the middle of healthy and toxic. These are the gray relationships. Starting off this tier is the friendship between Buzz and Izzy. With how similar Izzy is to her grandmother in terms of personality, you would think that these two would hit it off right away, becoming just as close to Buzz as Alicia was. Unfortunately, that just isn't the case. While he's hopeful once he learns of her lineage, it doesn't take Buzz long for him to start looking down on her simply for being a rookie. It doesn't help that Izzy's youth and overeagerness further adds to the distance first felt between them, making it hard for Buzz to completely trust her. Instead, he only wants her to stay safe, essentially still seeing her as that kid he saw in Alicia's holo message. Though they keep their sort of mentor-student relationship throughout the film, they are able to eventually bond. Izzy is able to help ease Buzz's guilt when he feels like he failed to give Alicia a chance to be a ranger again, telling him that Alicia's life still mattered. Later on, when Izzy messes up their mission big time, though Buzz is obviously disappointed and upset, he doesn't start yelling at Izzy for this mistake. He even encourages her later on, admitting that he needs her help and letting her know that he needs her, not her grandmother. While it may have been a bit bumpier than some of the other relationships we've talked about so far, its positive turnaround puts it just at the edge of gray. Keeping the focus on the new Team Lightyear, we wanted to touch on Buzz's relationship with the defense trio as a whole. We'll try not to repeat ourselves too much here, but yeah. Once Buzz realized they were all rookies, his trust in them dwindled fast. Though he didn't want to see them hurt or killed, it was obvious that he was annoyed and frustrated at being forced to drag them around. In fact, Buzz was so focused on getting them out of his hair that he forgot to tell them about the stealth mode time limit, leading to the trio getting put into unnecessary danger. Though Buzz is able to form a bond with Izzy over time, he struggles quite a bit to bond with Mo and Darby. Even so, he's willing to give them a compliment when they do well, share a meal with them, and even tries his best to comfort Mo, opening up to them all about his own past failures as a ranger. As such, the trio are able to in turn respect Buzz and want to do all they can to help him despite only just meeting him. It may not be the deepest friendship, but you can understand why Buzz wanted to take them on as full-time teammates in the end. Speaking of Buzz, we've now come to the professional relationship between Buzz and his current commander, Burnside. Though really, we use the term professional loosely, as neither one of them seems to show a ton of respect towards each other at first. While Burnside calls himself a fan of Buzz, even mentioning how he looked up to Buzz as a kid, he's pretty dismissive and even a bit callous when he tells Buzz that they're shutting down his mission in order to focus on the colony. As we stated in a previous video, while we may understand Burnside's side of things, he could have put a bit more care into discussing the topic with Buzz instead of simply forbidding him from trying the test fuel again. As for Buzz, well, he obviously didn't bother trying to respect Burnside's authority, and didn't seem to hesitate in stealing a ship once he realized he finally had a chance at successfully breaking Lightspeed. Buzz does eventually surrender and face responsibility for this action, and Burnside in turn lets him lead the reformation of the Space Rangers Corps. Admittedly, this turnaround does come out of nowhere, feeling more like a forced happy ending than Burnside actually wanting to do something nice for Buzz or the two of them coming to understand each other. As such, it doesn't do much to boost this relationship's ranking. At the end of Gray, we have the occasionally clashing relationship of Darby and Mo. In one of the first interactions we see from these two, we see them lightly bickering and questioning each other's goals, that being kill robots and don't die, emphasizing their differences in personality. After that, we see Darby chiding Mo for being what she considers a quitter, and in all honesty, these two scenes sum up their relationship pretty well. They may say opposites attract, but that isn't so in this case. While Mo may not have much malice towards Darby, being more confused by her than anything else, Darby is clearly annoyed and aggravated with Mo for most of the film. She even says to his face that he's the last person she'd want to be in a life or death situation with. We can't say that the two outright hate each other, as they are able to work together and help each other out when they need to. However, you never really get the feeling that these two would be friends if outside forces hadn't pushed them together, which is why they land so close near the bottom. Finally, we have the relationships that have very little good to them. These relationships are the toxic. Before we get to the main relationship of this tier, we had to touch on the fractured friendship between Zurg and Socks. While essentially the Buzz and Socks relationship from an alternate timeline, it's made clear that any connection they might have had isn't quite as strong as they used to be. Although Zurg keeps Socks around, he lets Socks get damaged over the years, not even trying to fix him up despite having an entire ship filled with equipment and resources at his disposal. When he meets past Buzz and sees that he isn't nearly as obsessed or as selfish as Zurg is when it comes to fixing his mistakes, Socks ends up tranquilizing Zurg, not really caring if he's going against his own Buzz, and even saying that he likes the new Buzz better. When Zurg wakes up from this attack, he not only goes after Buzz, but goes out of his way to destroy his timeline Socks, calling the cat a traitor and essentially putting the final nail in the coffin of what was their former friendship. It really is sad to see how this version of these two ended up, giving what was otherwise still a pretty sweet relationship a bit of a tragedy to it. Finally, our gold medal of toxicity is naturally going to Buzz and Zurg, aka Buzz and his older alternate timeline self. Talk about taking the man versus self theme to the next level. Looking at these two, it almost feels like a sort of retread of Carl and Charles Muntz from Up. Despite Zurg essentially kidnapping his younger self, the two Buzzes start off on the same page, with Zurg being pretty cordial towards Buzz. However, once their differences in personality become clear, Zurg's inner darkness is shown in how he's okay with destroying Buzz if it means finally completing his mission. While Buzz does try to convince his older self to stop, it only takes him a few minutes to essentially see Zurg as a lost cause, and he doesn't bother trying to talk him down again. Although technically being the same person, they both become more than willing to destroy the other, not really having any hesitations when it comes to their respective attempted kill shots. Like with Zurg and Socks, it's almost tragic in a way with how quickly they turn against each other and how hostile they become. For these reasons, this twist on the hero-villain dynamic easily earns the title of most toxic Lightyear relationship. But let us know in the comment section if you agree with our ranking, and tell us what we should cover next. Remember to hit that notification bell and binge more of our videos. But most importantly, stay wicked.